Hello, this is Guy and Sam,
How's it going?
and we're in Chiang Mai. Just so you know, this is my first ever YouTube live, and I'm here with Sam in the north of Chiang Mai. I live in the south, and he's going to do a podcast of the mental architect.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Got some questions for you.
one of us is the architect, the other is mental.
Ah, there you go. That's perfect. I might have to steal that tagline.
I'll volunteer to be mental.
Perfect. I'll be the architect for today. Maybe we can switch next time.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So Sam came over to my healing center, Lani Yoga, last Saturday.
Which y'all should go to if you're in the area by chance, because
Yeah.
it is amazing.
Good, yeah, come over. It's really fun. So Sam is looking really official. He's got mics. He's got extra cameras.
Mm-hmm.
We're outside on his patio.
Well, we've got an official guy on the podcast. We've got to be official.
There you go. So tell me a bit about your podcast and what the idea is.
So the idea behind the podcast is that we try to break down what it means to live a life of fulfillment.
Okay.
So, well, there's really two steps to it. You have to define what is it that leads to a life of fulfillment, because you kind of need to know what you're going for first.
Yeah.
So we define it in 5 main criteria, and that is purpose, health, wealth, relationships, and what I call mindfulness. That word can sometimes I describe as spirituality. It depends how you want to phrase it.
Yeah.
So step 1 is to define what leads to fulfillment. We define it by those 5 criteria. Then we figure out, well, okay, now that we have those 5 criteria dialed in, our goal is those 5 criteria. How do we achieve success in each one of those criteria?
So first of all, you define success outside a material.
Ideally,
concept, yeah.
ideally.
So-
Well, it can get interesting sometimes. So, for example, you notice that wealth was on the list.
Yeah, of course.
But we take a little bit, or at least I take a bit of a different approach to it, in the sense that I don't think one should strive for wealth for the purpose of buying a new car
Yeah.
or buying this or buying that. For me, wealth is important insofar as that it allows you freedom.
Yeah.
From wealth, you're given freedom, and you are able to travel, and you're able to come to Chiang Mai and meet someone like Guy,
And do
who I can
podcasts.
learn from. Yeah, I mean,
And be on YouTube Live at the same time.
exactly. It sucks, but if I was in poverty,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have this experience right here, and this
Yeah.
experience is fulfilling to me,
Yeah.
at least.
That's okay. We can actually. Are we going? Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So just- If you want, you can pop some headphones on to
alright.
be all official. And if you can keep it about a fist length away from the mic,
Okay.
if you can.
All right.
So yeah, we are here. We are here
But
with
you actually
Guy.
recording on your thing too.
Yeah, we got them both.
So that means we're in a recursive universe.
Exactly. The universe it's universe turtles all the way down.
Yeah, it's podcasting into YouTube, which is YouTubing into podcast.
Oh wow.
Something like that.
It's perfect. It's perfect. We're here with Guy Harriman. I'm so excited for this one. You're a yogi.
Mhm.
You're a qigong teacher. You're a master of human energy. You're an inventor. You're one of the first people in Apple and
Next.
in Next. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll have to watch the documentary to figure out the difference. And my personal favorite, you invented the Ajna light.
Mhm.
Does that about sum it up?
Yeah. I mean,
I feel like that's the tip of the iceberg when it comes
That's-
to you.
I'm a generalist, so
Yeah.
I'm a Pythagorean.
hmm What does that
Um,
mean?
Pythagoras. So when I went to, as a boy, I went to a Jesuit boarding school in England. Jesuit at the age of 8. So Jesuits were really hardcore. So we did 6 years. I did 6 years of Latin and 3 years of Greek.
hmm
But when I came across, maybe it's about the age of 12, Pythagoras, I had a total connection with
I know
him.
about his triangles, but that's about it.
Well, he was a music therapist.
hmm
He trained in Egypt for 20 years. His father was Persian, and he wore trousers. He didn't wear a
I can relate to that.
which is
I
cool.
also wear trousers.
You do?
Mhm.
So do I sometimes.
when it
Uh,
suits you.
Yeah, right. But he brought a lot of the Egyptian wisdom to the West. So he was really one of the main bridges from Egypt. And Egypt, of course, is connected to the Vedic teachings. So you're going back a long way in the wisdom
So
tradition.
Pythagoras was Egyptian? Because I
No,
thought he was
he,
Greek.
he's Greek,
But he hung
learned-
out in Egypt.
Yeah, for 20 years, came back.
Oh, and then he brought it back.
He was a music therapist, so he's a healer. He heard the harmony of the spheres, so he could actually, in his hearing, it's clairaudience, I guess, he could hear the rotation of
The Earth?
different planets.
No way.
But if you listen to NASA, NASA's recorded planets and sped them up so they're in the audio range. Each planet has a different frequency. The Earth is amazing. It's like birds tweeting.
We got a good one?
It's really interesting. But each planet has its own signature. So what he's talking about is vibration. And so he intuited how to do that. He also knew the heliocentric solar system. So like everyone else, this is like 500-600 BC. He said, yes, the sun is the center of the solar system. The Earth is a ball around it. 2,000 years ahead of
He was
us.
a bit ahead of his time with that one.
Yeah, but he also invented the monod. So
The what?
monod. Monod is a stringed instrument. Monos is one, so it has a single string. And he did the mathematics of harmony. So, for example, the third is the ratio of 2 to 1 in the string. So he places his hand
So
there.
he was the first guy to figure out all the scales and all that?
But he knew that the human body resonated to that, so he would help people heal through playing these perfect pitches. So Pythagorean tuning is really amazing stuff. It's they're all the numbers add up to 9.
Okay.
There's a whole matrix of them. So it goes, what he did goes on and on and on into very, very deep wisdom. And Plato came out of the Pythagorean tradition, and also Parmenides, who is I think 2 philosophers down from Pythagoras.
So was this sound healing information, was this something that he got from Egypt, or was this his own creation?
I'm sure it came from the traditions, but I think he was very good at mathematics. And
Yeah,
as we're
for
going
sure.
on a mathematical, as well,
That's what he's famous for, at least.
he's famous for that.
Those Greeks tended to do a lot, though.
But this was definitely, if you look at the Great Pyramid, it's all Pythagorean stuff. They knew about the theorem, and it's encoded into the geometry of the...
Something I'm curious about, I was on your site, which if y'all haven't been to lanayoga.com, definitely check it out. You were talking about, I believe, the healing properties of pyramids?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? How do pyramids specifically have healing
Okay.
properties?
I can say it in a very simple way. Cones and pyramids concentrate flux density. So
Okay, for the dummies like me, what is flux density?
if you take a magnet,
Okay.
the flux lines are the lines of magnetic induction.
Sure.
So, okay. If they're spread far out, you don't get so much effect. When they're brought together, you get a strong effect. So, for example, if you take, I don't know if you saw the Shingalite pyramid
I don't
in
think I
the
saw that
healing
one.
center, it's the black one. Right on top, you can feel a 3 gigahertz standing wave. That's because the resonant frequency of that pyramid, when it's concentrated to the point, is a lot stronger. So it's literally an analog way of amplifying energy lines.
Oh my goodness. I didn't realize there was so much going on with pyramids.
There's a lot going on.
I feel like there's a lot going on that I don't know about in general.
Well, that's the amazing thing about natural philosophy. There's a huge amount that we don't know about. The only thing we do know about is the hubris of mankind, thinking that we're the intellectual superiors of the previous civilizations, but
Are we not?
we're definitely not.
I don't know. Who's better than us?
Bosnian Pyramid.
Okay.
Bosnian Pyramid, the spheres there, and I stood on top of one of them. I have some of the spheres that are made of the local material. So those spheres, nature doesn't make perfect spheres. I have a video on my phone actually, which is showing a 3-meter sphere that they're just starting to uncover when I was there last year. So Sam Osmanagic, who discovered, he was studying Mayan pyramids and got his PhD there. Went back to Bosnia and was driving out on the freeway near Sarajevo and said, hang on, that looks like a pyramid. So got out of his car and had a good look. And then started excavating in early 2000s.
No one had found this pyramid before?
It's covered with
so it was underground?
Under about 2 meters of dirt.
Well, that was a good find.
But the shape is still there. So he dug down with some volunteers, found 30-ton pieces of cement, 90 degrees. In other words, nature doesn't go 90 degrees. It might do it by chance once, but
not several times in a row.
Jigsaw puzzle pieces. 3 interlocking sets that must have been made in place, and they were using the clay from the mountain. And I've got a video that I just took of him on the phone, of him saying, yeah, if you look over there, that mountain's half gone. They were using the pebbles from the rivers that were there and the aggregate as aggregate, and they were using clay as a binding agent. And we use lime. This clay is 3 times stronger than any cement we can make nowadays.
Clay is? This particular clay, Bosnia. So, Bosnia's got their clay dialed in pretty well.
So then the archaeologists in Bosnia said, "Oh, this is not possible. You're an idiot. We're shutting you down." So they made the top.
Because he was alleging that it was natural, or
no, he was saying this is man-made but far too old. They carbon dated leaves that were in between these layers, 27,000 years old.
Damn. No way.
That's what they said. So they said, well, this can't be right because we're the most intellectually advanced.
Yeah, I was about to say, this kind of changes the start date, so to speak, of civilization, because one way, it's an interesting question. When did civilization start? And you can go off of a lot of different criteria, but one common way we do it is, okay, when was the first major building built? That's what a lot of anthropologists choose to use. And so if we figure out Bosnia had it going on, I think right now we say around 12,000 BC.
Well,
is the current.
That's Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. So that's it's around 10,000.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So the minus Dryas when the flood happened.
So what civilization was this that
they were
this?
Deniscians.
Okay.
So they came from Siberia, Lake Altai, and Lake Baikal in the Altai Mountains. They also went to Korea. So
that's why they're so advanced now.
The Koreans, there are 30. I was just there last week and a couple of weeks ago. My friend who lives there said there are 30,000 practicing shamans in Korea. So
what exactly do you mean by shaman? Because usually when I hear the term shaman thrown around, I start thinking of ayahuasca and things like that.
That's actually the strict definition of shaman is somebody from that region of Siberia who works with animal magic, in particular trance states, and bringing in animals and working with people in altered states. So the Koreans, their language, this friend of mine, we both have this Russian friend, Alexander, and he when he came to Korea said, hang on, these people are using words that sound like the ancient Siberian from this area. So those people clearly came there, but they also went to Göbekli Tepe, and I think they brought Syrian Rue, because Syrian Rue is used in, it's an MAOI, and when I was in Turkey, there was all a lot going on a year and a half ago, but we did a Rue ceremony. So
I'm sorry, so what is Syrian Rue?
Syrian Rue is MAOI. So
what is that?
Monooxidase inhibitor.
Okay.
So monoamine, MAO, monoamine oxidase inhibitor. We have monooxidase inhibitor in our body to prevent us being stoned the whole time.
Oh, well, let's take that out. We don't need that.
That's what you do. That's what high tea is.
Sounds pretty useless.
So high tea is Syrian Rue and BCAPI. So BCAPI is the the root part of ayahuasca.
Mm.
All right. So last
Well,
night,
can ayahuasca be made from a bunch of different plants? If
ayahuasca
I'm no expert.
itself, I mean, the strict name ayahuasca is the Viridin DMT and B. capi, Banisteriopsis capi. So they happen to choose those two things. One is the source of the DMT, which is a Viridin thing, and then the other one, the B. capi, which is the inhibitor.
Mm.
So when I put Dennis McKenna on the Ashna Light a couple of years ago,
How did he like it? He
I
didn't do
loved
it.
the video. Yeah, he loved it.
Seems right up his alley.
I won't go down that road. But he really liked it. So he talked to Steve Barker, who's one of the top DMT researchers, and Steve Barker said, "Well, why don't you just do an MAOI and then go on the light?" So Dr. Chris, who you met at the light party last Saturday, he makes what I call high tea. He got into a lot of trouble because I called it high tea, but
Good name though.
it's a cool name.
You know marketing better than he does. If he doesn't
Yeah.
like that name. You know what the people want.
No, he loved it,
Mm-hmm.
but PayPal shut him down.
The man didn't like it. The establishment. Mm.
So he got screwed by PayPal. But high tea is, I decided let's do Syrian Rue as well as B. capi, because some people respond better than the other. But the idea is you do that, then you go on the light. And so last night, that's what we did. Came over to probiotic dinner, and
A lot of kimchi and kombucha for dinner.
gave them high tea, and then both Harrison and Angel went on the light. And Angel had been on before, and she said the visuals were way, way stronger, which is very common.
So to increase the effects.
Yeah.
So you said the MAOI, you almost implied that without it we would just be high all the time. Is that implying that our body is just naturally producing DMT all the time?
Yeah.
So it sounds like MAOI is what
stop-
inhibits the DMT
Yeah.
from affecting us.
which allows us to be in the beta state where we can actually talk and
Have a productive
not be
podcast.
drooling all day.
I mean, we could have the DMT podcast another day, but I don't know how productive it would be.
Exactly. Yeah. When I was last time, I was, should we say, working with plant medicines of the mushroom kind. I decided, okay, I made sure nobody was around, and I got my video camera, and I thought, how bad do I sound when I'm playing music? And it was pretty bad.
Really?
I mean, it was good, but it was really bad.
Yeah, good and bad. It was good for you.
Good when I was doing
Yeah.
it. It's like,
I bet at the time you thought you were fucking Van
This is
Halen,
great,
just
yeah,
killing
so-
it on the drums.
No, I was doing my frame drum and stuff.
Oh,
and,
nice.
And I was singing crazy Native American stuff, but the mental side,
I think so.
I was on the mental side.
Nice.
Now we're on the architect side.
Oh,
so the
there you
architect
go.
is straight, the mental's all over.
Well, we need the
place.
mental to balance out the architect.
The mental's fun,
The mental's
but
great.
don't impose it on other people.
Don't? No?
Well, it's
don't
so
give them the
boring.
mental? Suggest. Say, hey, there's
Yeah.
this mental side over here.
Let them do their own.
Let them
mental thing.
discover
Yeah.
the mental side. So, okay, well, let's talk about the Ajna light just a little bit. So, actually, let's back up because I think the background that led you to discovering the Ajna light, I kind of want to know about that. So, I originally heard about you on the Joe Rogan podcast. I'm sure you realize that you're mentioned
Yeah.
on there. And so they're talking about this guy that helped found Apple. Apparently, it's Next, which is kind of it's similar.
Dennis can never remember.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
obviously-
Apple / Next, Steve Jobs' company. And then he decided to go be a monk.
Mm.
And then he came back and he invented this kick-ass Ajna light, which basically you lay under it, and it's awesome, by the way. It flashes lights in a very amazing pattern that I'm sure you understand way better than most people, because, I mean, you invented the thing. And it produces DMT. It stimulates DMT production in your brain. Is that
That's
about right?
correct, yeah. And there's another time that you produced DMT last night, and the night before, and the night before, and the night before.
When we sleep, when we dream?
Yeah. John Chavez, he's a good friend of mine, and he came to ESPD 50 in Tyringham. So Tyringham had a research institute on DMT. And so I met Dennis there 2 years ago and a year ago. ESPD 50 Dennis put on in honor of Terence, because Terence had put on the first one in 1967, funded by the US government.
Ooh,
It's
no
very
way.
good. And then they freaked out and had the war on drugs and shut them down. But their idea was to
Yeah,
have
that's
every
always
10
productive.
years. Yeah. And ESPD means the Ethnobotanical Search for Psychiatric Drugs. So they were wanting, because in psychiatry these things are really, really useful. Psilocybin is amazing.
I love it.
So the one of the people there.
One of the inspirations for creating this podcast, actually.
Well, there's another monk, I forgot his name for a minute, but he works at Johns Hopkins, and he does ceremony with a chalice with psilocybin, interfaith, and to help people who are dying terminal, dying of cancer or whatever. One dose of psilocybin, and they're at peace with their mortality.
Really? Why the fuck is it illegal?
Because of that. Because people want
Can't
it
have
to
people
be the
being too
architect.
relaxed.
They don't want it to be mental.
Ah, the mental side.
I shouldn't really say mental, it's actually the dissociative or dissociated versus associative. So the only state of consciousness we're allowed as a culture is high beta associative. That means we're manipulable, we're running out of conditioning, doors of perception are shut, it's all safe,
You can market
boring,
things,
you buy
McDonald's look
McDonald's,
good,
KFC even looks
start turning into
good.
Pornhub, things like that, all the good stuff. How else are people gonna make money off you without it?
and you go shopping.
Yep.
And
You don't want to go shopping when you're on mushrooms. Are you kidding me? That sounds shitty. You don't even
Exactly.
understand it. I remember one time I was on mushrooms. I could not comprehend the concept of money. It just made absolutely no sense. It came back, luckily, when I said, I'm like, okay, I get it. Money makes sense. But at the time, I'm like, why the fuck are we spending so much time for these random pieces of paper? This is so useless.
Exactly.
Didn't want to shop. So DMT. DMT, it seems like it's one of the drugs that has maybe the most confusion surrounding it. And there's a lot of confusion to be had surrounding psilocybin and things like that, but it gets especially crazy with DMT because, to my knowledge, psilocybin is not naturally produced in the body,
Right.
but DMT is.
Yeah.
And moreover, if my research is correct, DMT is produced in a lot of organisms. It's probably in grass and in the plants
everywhere.
right over here. What's going on there? What is this molecule that's everywhere around us that makes us enter the spirit realm, so to speak?
Okay. So would Sam like to be this?
I would not like to be an iPad. That sounds like a nightmare.
You have a nightmare if you're an iPad. Actually, you don't have an iPad because you don't have DMT. In other words, you're unconscious. You're not connected to nature.
Mm-hmm.
The definition of a machine, in my opinion, is an entity that doesn't have DMT.
Are there any organisms that don't have DMT?
Not living organisms, I would say. And I mean, maybe something very, very simple, but it seems like every cell has DMT. I mean, DMT, Chris Barker's student, Dr. Harrison, showed that DMT is actually a neurotransmitter. And when you take LSD, it generates 100 times the DMT.
Then what happens when you take DMT?
So when you sleep, this is what Jan Chavez showed, when you go into a REM period, your respiration rate changes. The most DMT in the body is in the lungs. So the blood becomes alkali, releases the DMT, the MAOI, or the MAO, the monoamino oxidase is inhibited at night, so then the body experiences a trip, otherwise known as a dream. Now that's where wisdom comes through. Wisdom doesn't come through analysis. Knowledge comes through analysis. This has, the Sam who's an iPad has knowledge. You can go and look up shit and you can Google it. It doesn't mean anything. It's just information. Wisdom is the DMT aspect of knowledge.
That actually makes a lot of sense. It was actually that idea was first introduced to me by an author named Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
In The Power of Now, and it was actually this feeling that I was getting as I was reading The Power of Now, and then he addressed it in his book, basically saying, "Look, you probably read a lot of books, and you felt a feeling of knowledge, as you said, because you're getting information that's new, putting it into your brain. But when you have a profound spiritual realization, when you read a text that is very well made and it's targeted towards spiritualism, it's this feeling of, oh, yeah, it's like there's something right in front of you this entire time.
It's here.
Yeah, and you finally see
This
it.
is it's in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge is in the head. That's analysis. Wisdom is in the heart. So in Taoism, the emperor lives in the heart. The servant is in the head.
Mm.
And Jung translated this book called Secret of the Golden Flower that talks about what happens when the emperor is not resident in the heart. The servant's trying to run the palace of the body.
So can DMT allow you to get closer to the heart in that case?
It opens the heart, allows the emperor to come back. Now you have a choice to go back to fear. Fear is shutting down love. Fear is just separating yourself from wisdom. It's putting a brick wall around you so you feel safe. But you feel safe in dysfunction. You feel safe in fear. In fear, you're manipulable. You're one of the herd of deer waiting to be shot by the hunter. The hunter is working in corporate America, manipulating you
The
by
hunter is
advertising.
McDonald's.
Yeah. Because they don't care. It's like, shit, I'm a psychopath, want to make lots of money. These fucking sheep, I can manipulate them. It's so easy. You know, Freud's nephew, what's his name? Van, the one who started advertising. Bernays, yeah. Edward Bernays. He was the nephew of Freud, and in the 20s and 30s, he wrote the whole book literally on marketing. He said you manipulate people in this way, make them feel inadequate, make them feel worthless, take away their self-love.
Was he borrowing from his father's ideas and just using them
Just using
for
the negative.
evil?
Well,
Maybe
it's,
not evil, but
you know, it's all
his own benefit.
his own benefit. But you see, if you think about it from a psychopath's point of view, if you got a bunch
Always
of
good
idiots,
practice.
it's always good. Yeah, looking through the other person's eyes. 7% of humans are psychopaths. They showed that during
That high?
World War II. Yeah, this general in World War II wanted to see who was killing people, so they found out that like 7% were actually totally cool about shooting anyone, and they influenced another like 8%. So
I don't know if I
50%.
would want that guy in my platoon.
15% of them were strong enough that they influenced the others to kill. But the others, you'd have this Japanese, you know, madman running at them, and they wouldn't shoot. They were just nice people. They couldn't kill another human being.
I can imagine. That would be tough.
So the nice people are the ones who are manipulated by the psychopaths.
I don't know.
So from the psychopath's point of view, it's shit, I'm a predator, you're just a sheep, fuck you, bang.
So what would happen if that psychopath took DMT? Think it would open him up a bit?
That's what Aldous Huxley was looking at. And that's what those psychopaths are so afraid of.
Aldous Huxley, the guy that wrote Island and all those other books.
Yeah, but he also wrote The Doors of Perception.
I don't think I read that one. What's that about?
It's about the psychedelic experience. So at ESPD 50, this totally cool man, what's his name? The name will come back to me. He's in his 80s. In Cambridge in the 1950s, he bought the not the peyote, but the mescaline to give to Aldous Huxley, and then he worked with Timothy Leary at Harvard. And his name's on the tip of my tongue, but he's totally cool. His point when we had the symposium, his point was we need to get out there and market ourselves, not do research, just get the word out. Because
You should read Freud's kids book. He'd do a great job.
Exactly.
Maybe talk to Guy, get some high tea up in here,
exactly, yeah.
fly off the shelves.
So the thing is, you know, what we're talking about is externalization of the human psyche. We have the shadow and we have the light inside us. The shadow's there to bring awareness. If we reject it, we become sheep.
Okay.
if we integrate it and accept that part of ourselves, we transform it, which is the purpose of the psychedelic journey, into a being of light. The being of light is integrated. It's got both the demonic and the angelic aspect. All the dualistic religions, angels, are easily manipulated in the earth plane, let's put it that way. Because they just want to help victims, and they become victims.
That's an interesting point of view. So you have the light and the shadow inside you. So what exactly do you mean by that? What is the light? What is the shadow?
When you're thinking dualistically, it's what we separate into good and evil.
Okay.
But all the really ancient traditions, like the Essene teachings, yoga, Dzogchen in Tibet, Taoism, they understood the non-dual nature of reality. And judgment is about separating into good and evil, but that's already outside non-dual. In non-dual, part of you is the observer of what is. And there's no real separation between us and nature. Nature has, the predator, evil, and the sheep, the lamb. Now, we just judge one as being good or bad, but actually a healthy natural system includes the predator as well as the sheep.
Otherwise, the sheep are gonna fuck too much. We're gonna have sheep everywhere, and the earth is
Fuck
gonna.
sheep. That's
We're gonna be fucked. Look at what happened to Australia. We got rabbits all over the place.
yeah, exactly.
So how does a psychedelic experience? I think you said something along the lines of transforming that shadow into light.
It takes you into non-duality.
In what sense?
To me, in a very literal sense. So, have you heard of Sappho?
Sappho. I have not heard of Sappho.
Okay. So Sappho is the Sonoran desert toad. It's
Yes, the frog. Yeah, I think I have.
No,
No, the
Kamba,
toad. Excuse
the
me.
toad.
The toad.
Very, 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 very different.
Okay.
So Kamba is a poison that they cut your arm and stick it into your bloodstream. Not a good idea. It's
Yeah, I saw a
very
Vice
dangerous.
documentary about that one.
No.
The homie didn't seem like he's having a good time.
Yes,
Just got a little sweaty and then walked it off.
exactly. So Sappho, Octavio Rittig was a doctor in Mexico who was helping addicts, and so he somehow discovered about this Aztec tradition. And it's the poison. It doesn't hurt these toads, but you just squeeze the poison glands, and then you collect this rubber stuff on a piece of glass. And then the Aztecs discovered that if they vaporized it through heat, it became 5-MeO-DMT, which is the spiritual form of DMT. There's various different aspects, but 5-MeO.
Is that like the modern DMT that we think of, 5-MeO, the
No,
hardcore
they're both
kind?
useful, but it's not a chemical on its own. I mean, nothing in nature.
Right.
But
I just kind of mentally categorize DMT into, okay, you have like ayahuasca over here, maybe the more natural way to take it, and then I have
there's a synthesized form.
the
but
synthesized version of DMT.
I don't recommend that.
How do you recommend taking it?
Well, the toad recommends taking it this way.
Okay.
After you squeezed it.
Yeah, keep telling me about the toad.
Okay. So I was invited there to Mexico to do this ceremony, and I'm not like, my practice is where I get my inner experience, but I'm open to way shows from nature if they show up, but I'm not going to go running after them. So the curandero, he was trained by Octavio Rittig. Octavio Rittig looked at all the iconography of the Aztecs, and you see in so many places this toad, and he's saying, what's the toad all about? The Aztecs knew that the Spanish were coming. They thought they saw them in Spain. They thought they were on top of deer because they didn't have horses.
Mm-hmm.
And they was like, what's going on, all these men, blah, 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 but they knew that they were coming. And that's because they were getting visionary journeys through the Sappho.
No way, is it like documented? They wrote down the Spanish were coming or some type of inquisitors
They
coming?
knew, yes, they actually told the Spanish when they came, yeah, we knew you were coming.
This isn't the first time that I've heard this this idea of seeing into the future when it comes to psychedelics. I don't suppose you've heard the Paul Stamets interview on Joe Rogan
it's
heavy.
a bit. Yeah, because that was Dennis recommended that, and it's really, really cool.
Really good interview, but it's
He
just
hates anyone who says shrooms.
Oh, really?
You remember his saying that?
I don't think I remember him saying
Don't
that, but
say shrooms.
I have noticed he tends to say psilocybin
Yeah.
a lot more. It makes it sound a lot fancier when you say it.
Well,
too.
his point, and I think it was a valid point, the trivialization of mushrooms by, oh, I'm stoned on shrooms.
Shroom, you
now."
can't even say the mush in front. You don't have time for that. I'm on shrooms.
So you sound like a freaking idiot,
Yeah,
which you are,
yeah.
to the people who are in the left brain, as we're cycling back.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who are in the associative state, easily, they can't relate to dissociated people. In fact, if you get permanently dissociated, you're schizophrenic. It's not a good idea. So mastery is being able to flow backwards and forwards, associated, dissociated, at will. So you can go into the dream state, pick up the information and come back. And you can be lucid in your associative state. So you merge, you bleed the two worlds together. But our dualistic cultures say, oh no, you can't do that. You're either totally straight and wanting to kill people and make money, or you're dissociating, in which case you're a freaking shroom head. Fuck off.
Go to jail.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that because as a child, I think it just, when you say shrooms, or even when you say acid or whatever it is you want to say, I don't think we've created a fun word for DMT yet. Luckily, we're still calling it DMT. We haven't called it like super happy fun crystal yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when you start telling a kid, hey, shrooms are bad, acid are bad, acid's bad, it's very easy to believe it because it sounds like every other drug. You got smack and you got crystal meth and then shrooms. You know, that's just lumped in, and I think it actually becomes a little bit dangerous the way we teach it, specifically because it's just misinformation.
Yeah.
First off, but also when children or when children become adults and they start experimenting as they do, they're going to realize, oh, these shrooms, the psilocybin, this isn't nearly as bad as I thought it was. Well, what else isn't bad?
Exactly.
And then you start going and you start applying that philosophy to things that actually are bad.
So what they're really being taught, and they're being taught through a lie, is that having your consciousness open is bad because it means you're not part of the corporate control system. Bill Richards and Ralph Metzner, they were the two names. Okay, so Bill Richards is the one who used psilocybin, and it's all documented and researched at Johns Hopkins. And then Ralph Metzner was the one who bought the mescaline from Aldous Huxley. So what is dangerous and highly, highly, highly dangerous to our culture is opening the mind. That's why they were down on the hippies.
I have an idea on why it's dangerous, but I'm curious your perspective.
Well,
What's going to happen
you
if all our
can't be
minds open up
controlled.
tomorrow?
You become a free being. Free beings are very dangerous. They don't pay taxes, because why the hell should they? They don't go to work, because why the hell should they? Like you said, money doesn't mean anything. So you do things like, I do like trading. So, oh, that's not allowed.
I love all the trading you do. You keep talking about these people that got auction lights, like, oh, look at these crystals I traded it for. Oh, God, I got a box of chocolates from this guy. It's just, you're going back to the bartering system, you know?
Absolutely.
How do you buy all your mangoes and all your vegetables? Do you have to, unfortunately, use the Thai bot for that?
Yeah.
You haven't found a way to
Apart
trade
from
yet?
the ones in the garden.
Oh, true. That's right. You got a good garden.
They manifest themselves.
Well, it's interesting because in a way society would break down, but it's only really our current definition of society that would break down. A new, arguably superior society would be born, depending on your...
A Neolithic form of society.
Exactly, depending on your definition of superior.
And it's not, oh, this is going to be, oh dear, what would happen if? This is happening. The control structure, and it all goes back to Descartes. You know, reductionist thinking and materialism is by definition, you end up turning human beings into an
And
iPad.
iPads.
No DMT. Guess what? Neolithic experience, like Blue Lotus for the Egyptians, that was a psychedelic. The Elysian ritual, all the Greeks for a whole month did acid That's,
for a month straight.
yeah.
They're supposed to take a break?
September. No. They took the month of September was the Elysian ritual, and they used rye, and it was the ergot,
Mm-hmm.
which has got LSD in it.
Yeah.
That's where LSD was synthesized from. So they were freaking stoned, and that's how they came up with ridiculous things like democracies and city-states.
Crazy, ridiculous bullshit, not even useful.
No.
The guy that got the Nobel Prize, I forget his name, but the man that won the Nobel Prize for discovering DNA was on acid
Yeah,
at the time.
Crick. James Crick. Yeah, he was totally. I mean, Steve Jobs did acid. When I was in medical school,
Mm-hmm.
if I trace it back, the reason I dropped out was because I dropped acid one time. And,
Really?
and it was really hilarious.
That's a hell of a trip.
It was a great trip. So what happened was, Leeds University was a lot, I mean, apparently still Leeds is a really big centre for all that stuff. But, you know, Who Live at Leeds, you know, some of the great bands. This is 72 when I was there, 72, 73. So I was 18 years old. And so they're selling some blotting paper. Do Americans know what blotting paper is?
Yeah, it's just the little piece of paper with
The
acid on
pink
it.
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. And it was totally useless. And then someday somebody got it right.
Yeah.
It was like
And it become much more useful.
there was this mega dose, but it had strychnine in because I kept on feeling somebody sticking needles into my language.
Wait, what was in there?
Strychnine.
Strychnine?
Strychnine.
What
It's
is
a
that?
poison, really bad poison that's a side effect.
Why are they putting that in your acid?
Because they weren't doing it very well.
Well, I've heard acid is very complicated to make.
It's not that bad, but if you don't do it clean, you've got anyway.
It's more
So-
complicated than making mushrooms. You just grow those
So I
guys.
had 24 hours where monsters were coming out of doors.
Oh, Jesus.
No, it's actually, oh, this is interesting. I have a really sort of strong mind,
Mhm.
so I can be both very associative and witnessing and present while I'm also dissociative.
I was gonna say that's how you take a bad trip and turn it into a good one when the monsters are coming out of the door and say, that's interesting.
It really was good. I mean, literally, I'd go up in the house I was staying at. I remember going upstairs, and literally this freaking monster came out. It's like, oh, that's cool. But the
That's a
funniest,
hell of a dose of acid.
but the funniest thing of all, my father and my sister came over, and my father's a neuropathologist. You know, I was at the medical school in Leeds at the time, and I was trying to be normal. So I
How'd that
was
go?
laughing at myself, trying to be normal,
Mm-hmm.
trying to speak normally to my father and my sister while I knew I was tripping balls. It was really good.
Did you get discovered?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
good
so-
job. You played it off. You should be an actor.
I think, yeah. I should.
So, how did that particular trip lead you to dropping out of medical school?
Because, well, I was doing other stuff, like I was working in the hospitals, and I grew up in the medical system. You know, like one of my youngest memories is going into my father's lab. There were brains and formaldehyde and stuff like that. And
It's a little creepy.
it was really hardcore. And my mother was a psychiatrist.
Full brain?
So, yeah. And so I grew up in that
Mhm.
world, but I felt my heart shut down when I was in medical school. And it was, I knew what they were doing was a deliberate deconstruction, so they could program you into being a drug threat. Because that's all dogs are, drug rats.
Unfortunately, 99%
In
of them.
white coats. Yeah, well, if they're doing it, if they're still working as doctors. As
There's
in-
one or two cool ones out there that will.
Yeah, but they,
They're few and far between.
very few.
Well, the money is not in, hey, maybe you should eat more vegetables. The money is in, hey, I've got,
Take this drug.
you want some Viagra?
Exactly.
Make your dick hard. I get $40 every time I write a prescription. That's interesting. So your heart shut down when you were in medical
Well,
school.
I felt it, did the acid trip, and I said,
Did it reopen
no.
your heart?
I just said, well, I made a choice. I just said, I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life, but I'm dropping out because I'm going to show up for my heart. And the dean of the medical school was really pissed.
Oh, did he know it was because of acid? Because that had to have made him even more pissed.
Right.
That would take his piss and that would just multiply it.
No,
Like,
because-
not only am I dropping out, it's because of drugs.
Yeah. Well, no, because my father was one of the lecturers. in the medical
Yeah, so that
school.
doesn't
It's
look
like,
good.
You know, his is the son of, you know, one of the teachers. And my father's a
You're
really
supposed to
good
be the one
researcher.
everyone looks
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
It's like, you're the guy. You're going to medical
Exactly.
school, you're going to be a doctor,
So
you're
it
going to
became-
sell out and give drugs to everyone. That was your path. How dare you?
Exactly.
How dare you, guy?
And I sold out and didn't sell drugs.
Mm.
What I did instead was started building music synthesizers.
Mm.
So I got into electronic music. And then I decided, oh, maybe I'll go and do electronics. And then I became a chip designer, worked in parallel processing in the UK. And then Pixar was using the transputer, the chip I designed.
How does one just kind of get into parallel processing and chip design? That's
Well,
not something you just kind of wake up and do.
That's actually what happened. I had a choice of working, because I was top of my class in electronics, doing really well, you know, so, because I was really loving it. I was much more a mathematician than a wet science. Wet
Mhm.
science is sort of nasty and gross. It wasn't much fun.
Yeah.
But mathematics, you know, the imaginal world is like super cool. Schrodinger's equation,
Don't even get me started on Pythagoras.
exactly. So, you know, it all led back to that thing, but INMOS was starting the year I was graduating,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't know if we'd get the second round of funding or blah, 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 blah.
What started? I'm sorry.
It's a company called INMOS.
Okay.
So INMOS was founded by Dick Petritz and Ian Barron in the UK, they were named too. So Dick Petritz is the founder of Mostech. Mostech had done the DRAMs, it's a huge company. And Ian Barron was an architect, mini computer architect in the UK. And they were doing this totally visionary company. I mean, awesomely visionary, to do parallel processing. And the average age of the company was 23. I mean, we're all graduates.
Sounds hip.
It was amazing.
Cracking beers at work.
More than that. We had
Dropping acid at work.
some people were. I was like,
We've kind of come full circle with that. All the Silicon Valley people are microdosing acid now.
yeah, exactly. Yes, but, we could go for several hours
Yeah.
down that path. But so I ended up being the lead designer of the transputer and the chip design part of it. And we had amazing people like Tony Hoare was Algol 68. He worked on COBOL originally, so he's one of the top architects in Europe, and he came up with CSP, communicating sequential processes, which is actually what you and I are doing right now.
We're both processors. We're
We're
communicating.
sequential processes and we're communicating.
What if I interrupt you?
Then
So,
that works in
Let's see.
CSP.
Mm.
So we in the transputer are 4 serial links
Mhm.
and an event engine. I designed the links, and the event engineer wrote all the microcode. In the microcode, I could switch contexts in 25 clock ticks.
Mm. See, I could only do that in 32, so you're beating
No,
me.
you're not. If you're running any Linux, anything like that, it's thousands and thousands of clock ticks because you're carrying so much state.
Mm.
But the architecture of CSP was minimal. It's a stack-based architecture, and just 2 words in memory were a process. That was the minimum. A W pointer and an I pointer. And it was 2 levels of priority. There was timers, so you could time out to deal with the dining philosopher's problem, live lock, deadlock. I mean, the architecture
Getting
was...
flashbacks to operating systems class right now.
It was so far ahead of its time. Even now, 30 years later, it's ahead of its time. Nobody's doing that.
So how the fuck did you get into that as someone who just dropped
Because
out
I
of college?
showed up. No, that was dropping out of medical school.
Well, yeah,
Then I went
dropping out of
back
medical
to
school.
Manchester University to
Mm.
electronics. And because I loved electronics, like that's what I'm doing. And then when I graduated, I chose a crazy job.
So how'd you end up with Steve Jobs?
Because Pixar was using the transputer.
Mm.
So Tin Toy was just before Toy Story. The Silicon Graphics hardware that they had would have taken 3 years to render Tin Toy.
3 years?
3 years. Yeah.
Holy fuck.
So
I was trying to render a video the other day, it took 6 hours and I was getting frustrated.
Right. So Jeff Mock, who was working at Pixar, he designed a 16 transputer board with memory on it, plugged into a Sun workstation, and multiple of those. So to give you an idea, at SIGGRAPH in 1985, we had 400 transputers in the box. We were flying through the Mandelbrot set in real time in 1985. 400 transputers.
Goodness. How long did it take y'all to render Toy Story then?
3 months.
Oh, good for y'all.
Yeah, so that's Steve
Well
heard about
done.
that. I asked Jeff, would you introduce me to Steve? And then I got LSI to pay for me to go for an interview. And I remember it was the weirdest interview of my life.
Was this with Steve directly?
So I turned up at work at Next in Palo Alto, 8 o'clock in the morning. He said, okay, we're going to interview, then I'll come and talk to you. It was like a massive interrogation. Every single person in the company at Next interviewed each person.
Oh, goodness.
So I had like 10 or 11 people at once. But a few of them had come from Pixar and they knew about me because of the transputer. And it was actually like
I can vouch
this.
for you.
We were talking about.
So how'd you drop out of medical school, stuff like that?
And also, about SIGGRAPH and all that cool stuff. And parallel process. So it was actually really, really interesting. But it was like bang, bang. And Steve had the best people
So they knew
in
their
Silicon
shit.
Valley. He had the whole of the electronic music department from Stanford.
Goodness.
He had the top graphics people, I mean, just
At
amazing.
Pixar or at Next?
At Next,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, he had the best operating system people like Bertrand Serlet, who became a good friend. He did what became OS X.
So what was it like when Steve Jobs himself interviewed you? Was he intense?
Okay.
Was he
I
eating his
have to
fruit?
tell you about Steve.
Okay.
Steve and I are exactly the same age. He was 6 weeks older than me. Both vegan. My daughter went to the same Waldorf school Lisa originally went to. I was really good friends with Chris Ann Brenner, who is Lisa's mum. So, Steve was the ultimate predator. If you had any weakness, he would eat you alive.
It sounds
And
terrifying.
spit you out. Well, everyone was terrified of him. But I was like, I'm just being me. Every Wednesday I'd go to yoga class, to my yoga teacher in Palo Alto. Non-negotiable, that's what I do. I don't care what crisis is going on. If you do that, and you're not a freaking sheep, and you take care of yourself, people actually respect it. So, I'm not a loud and angry person. Most people find me pretty mellow. But
You calmed me down.
there you go. So, but I'm very strong. This is what I'm doing. If you don't like it, fine. End of story. Separate ways. Doesn't matter to me. I'm not manipulable because I'm not giving my power away. Most people start by engaging in the corporate world by giving their power away because of wealth. So there are 3 forms of wealth or abundance: love, time, and money. This is Guy's theory. Love is number 1. Every being who has DMT and every being who's alive in nature, not this iPad, has an idea of love.
Steve Jobs is flowing through my iPad.
Yeah. I mean, you can read or watch a video of him. That's the knowledge of him. There's no wisdom. Nothing you can be created from it.
So are you speaking more about love from others or love for yourself?
No, love. Love of the universe. The natural love. This form of love. Open-handed love. Not manipulation, which is relationship love. You're my boyfriend, I own you, you have to do what I tell you, or I'm going to manipulate you. No, that's not love. It's manipulation. Love is an acceptance and a resonance of joy in the heart. It's a resonant experience. And it's there all the time in nature. The tree over there is expressing that to you and to me. When we tune into the tree, we feel joy and peace. That's because we're in the plane of love.
That makes sense.
Everything in dark field energy is love.
Dark field energy? What is that?
Chi.
Ah, makes sense.
The universal, in physics, it's 0 point energy, whatever you want to call it, the magnetic stillness of
Mhm.
consciousness. So
So you have love, number one.
number one is that. That's what you have.
Gotta get that dialed in.
Well, you have it dialed in. If you're born, if you're human, if you're not an iPhone.
Well, you have it dialed in, but I feel like people
Then
can
it's dialed
lose
out.
it. Yeah, I was about to say.
Not can. The whole definition of growing up as a child is conditioning.
Sit down, shut up, put your
through
love away.
fear. Exactly, put your love away, disconnect from nature. Then you're manipulable by teachers, parents, the system. So, second level is the abundance of time. And then the third one is the abundance of money. Most people give all their time away in exchange for a small amount of money. And they feel safe, but they've disconnected from love because they have no time to experience love.
I was about to say, you've been disconnected from time. That's a downgrade.
You
It's a hierarchy,
downgrade.
right? 1 is better than 2, and 2 is better
Yeah,
than 3.
as a child, as a baby, you've got 100% love. And time, what the hell's time?
Pretty good with time, too, as a baby. You got not much going on.
Yeah, exactly. You've got an abundance of time. It's like, oh, I'm ready for a meeting now. Shit, I have to meet with my diaper.
Got that baby meeting down the road. I
Yeah,
gotta
exactly.
get to.
Yes,
Sorry.
exactly. I just text my
Yeah, my baby
baby
assistant.
friend. Yeah, right.
I'm 3 months old. He's 2 months old, so he's still
Yeah,
learning.
exactly.
So Steve Jobs felt this hierarchy from you.
I guess
What
he
you're saying?
did. I mean, I was just being me, but he never ever shouted at me.
Well, that's an incredibly powerful personality trait. I mean, I gotta be honest with you. If I went in for an interview with Steve Jobs, I'd kind of be shitting my pants.
No,
And so to have someone come in, just be cool, be like, hey man, I'd love to work for you. You gotta know I gotta go to yoga on Wednesdays, but other than that, happy to work for you. My reaction if I were Steve Jobs would be like, holy shit, what does this guy know?
Well, it was funny what he said. So, I've been through all these people. At 11 o'clock he put his head round the door. Well, everyone seems to like you when you're coming to work for us. It's like, what?
Well, that was easy.
It's like, I had to talk to
On
LSI
Monday, I
first.
guess.
So those are bozos. Why you want to work for LSI? They're a complete bunch of bozos. I said, okay. And, but I took a big pay cut to go to Next.
Well, that's interesting because at the time, I suppose you didn't really know that Steve Jobs was the Steve Jobs that we know today. So why is it that you took the pay cut?
Because my intuition said yes.
Mm.
My intuition said this is just as crazy as going to Inmos. But doing the right thing, okay, there's two forms of craziness. Doing the stupid thing, that's mental. In a bad way. No, that's in the head. That's just, I don't know what I'm doing. And you do the stupid thing.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And that's okay. That's fair. You do it, you get up. Doing the wise thing is an intuitive feeling that you absolutely know. You know in your heart, everyone else is. People said, they actually called it a baptism by fire, going to work at Next. And they said, because I was doing really well at Inmos. I was, lead of all these people. I always refused to go into management because it's like taking a gun to my head and shooting myself.
Why?
Because I'm an engineer. I like to create stuff. I don't want to sit in boring meetings.
Make other people create stuff.
And take on their crap.
Yeah.
I've been a therapist for many years, and I can sit with people's shit, but I don't want to eat their shit.
Hmm.
And that's what being a manager is, eating people's shit day in, day out.
That's no good. Not even if it's the golden shit. Have you seen the golden pills you can take? Makes your shit sparkly.
That sounds
These are
wonderful.
things. Yeah, it's really pretty.
Is it?
You can order them on the internet.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
like ayahuasca. But I've heard that the most expensive fantasy act, or this sort of crazy fantasy act, the time of the excess consumption, and you're about to go down the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
So to make golden shit, people are eating food with gold oil.
Oh
in
yeah,
it.
of course. You have to.
Golden shit. Seems,
I personally refuse to eat any food without some gold in it.
Oh, you do.
Can't do it. You're a vegan. I'm a Goldilocks. That's what I am. Only gold.
Well, no,
I
but
feel great.
I take a different form of gold.
Mm.
Monotonic gold.
What is that?
Oh, the almost the monotonic form of gold. It's mana. The Egyptians and Moses was giving it to people as mana.
Mm.
It was in the sarcophagus in the king's chamber. All this powder is almost. and David Hudson discovered it. It's a superconductor at room temperature. I mean, I won't go into big detail, but my vision, I have lots of interesting challenges with vision because of basically my father looking down a microscope his whole life and giving me that stuff. But I can see now with this eye, because I had 2 cataracts when I stopped working, suddenly came. It's like my inner child said, shit, it's not safe, shut down. So within a few months of retiring when I was like 47, I got these cataracts. And then I decided to do vision healing, so I couldn't see for ages. I literally built my healing center, being able to see about 10 centimeters in front of me.
Really? Your healing center looks amazing, ironically.
Because I just trusted I could do it. I just looked at everything really, really close.
And so how did you heal your vision?
So, it's a long story, but with this eye, after I was a monk, I decided, okay, I've done 10 years of trying different, all sorts of drops and blah, 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 and I do EFT. You know, I learned a lot of stuff. Emotional level, you know, the whole yoga therapy thing. And it wasn't moving, so I realized, you know, the Buddhists did cataract surgery 2,500 years ago with a golden needle.
Sounds a little scary.
With a golden needle. Well, actually it's okay, you don't feel pain in your eye. But they realized...
I feel uncomfortable in my eye, that's for sure.
And that was one of the things I had to face, because my father had glaucoma, he had everything going on. And that's what I learned. And so I wanted to work with that. So after I had the cataract surgery, I just had it in this eye because I wanted to leave this one. With my left eye I can see, it's all orangey brown, but I can see about 10 centimeters. I'm out of focus there and I'm out of focus there. But I use this for soldering and stuff like that. So I have, if I'm looking at this, I would probably look pretty close to see with this on. But rather than turning it into a big issue or a problem, I said, okay, what can I learn from it? So I learned to see with my feet. I could only fly SFO to Bangkok because I did the apples. And, but I learnt a lot of patience and a lot of compassion for people who can't see well. After the surgery, I could only focus here about maybe 15 meters away. I couldn't focus any closer. I had a monofocal replacement because I was 12'd out as visual correction. I mean, I was seriously
almost blind.
Yeah. Now I can see accurately here, but when I started the monatomics, I can see at night now, and I can see the colours are much stronger, which means I'm getting UV. So my frequency range is probably about 900 to 1,000 nanometers, up to 300 nanometers. So that's what the monatomics do. Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. So monotonic meaning the gold, monotonics.
It's okay. You know how metals work, don't you?
Probably not as well as you.
Covalent bonds. Chemistry.
Yeah, I remember that. I
remember the
bonds.
chemistry. Remember the bonds. Okay. Covalent bonds are shared electron bonds, and you have forms of metal where they sort of group together, and all the reflective aspects are because of the shared bonds. That's why they look shiny. Photons come down. Well, they're not really photons, but rays come down and get reflected back. That's all cool. So monatomic. So you could have N5, it's called. So 5 electrons shared, N4, N3, N2, N1, and then N-1, N-2, N-3. So either you get metal atoms of the metallic element, which are sharing either by giving or receiving. But guess what?
What?
The really cool one that all the ancient peoples knew about, the Egyptians, the Hebrews, the 12 tribes of Israel with Moses. they understood this M0 state. And if you really look at what was going on in the pyramid, that was one of the things they were doing. They were making this monotonic element. That's why it was the British, when they entered, the archaeologists entered the Cheops pyramid, they went and they found this white powder, and they took it off to the British Museum. They didn't know what the hell it was.
Were the Egyptians doing cocaine?
No, it's in the monotonic form of gold.
Mm.
That's why they wanted gold, because they wanted to transform it into the monotonic form.
For healing purposes?
When you ingest it, and it's totally safe to ingest, it is a superconductor at room temperature, so your brain starts working really well.
So can I take this as a supplement, even if I don't have any
Do
problems?
you remember, you didn't go into my bedroom, where I did my Qigong? I got loads of bottles of monotonics. I've done platinum, iridium, osmium, copper, silver, actually the whole platinum group they have, rhodium. They all taste different to do slightly different things, and they're awesome.
So, do you have a theory on why it is that your psych gave out right after you retired and stopped working as an engineer, or was it just a coincidence?
Do you believe in fate or destiny? Or
In
neither?
a sense, a bit.
Okay.
What do you mean by fate or destiny? Define it for me.
Okay.
Different people define it differently.
Yeah.
Because I also believe in free will,
Exactly.
and that's where things get confusing.
Not really. If go back to computer architecture, tree structures, very a really fundamental part of computer architecture.
Right.
Decision making, binary decisions are really cool. So, at any point in your life, you have a choice. You have free will, and you could say multivalence is really just a stacked form of binary choice. Let's reduce it to binary choice. You go left or right in the tree. Yeah. 0
Let's go
or 1.
left.
Let's go left. 0. I like 0.
I like 0 as well.
Next time you go a 1 or 0.
Oh, let's go 1 this time. Let's get crazy.
Exactly. So you've gone yin and then yang. Now, you have the free will, or the illusion, the conditioned illusion of free will, to choose a 1 or a 0. There is fate that is biasing you to a 1 or 0, which is coming from your soul. Most people ignore their soul. They totally ignore the soul, because the soul, in my opinion, lives in the tabernacle of your heart, in this golden little room, symbolically, and it speaks with a very quiet voice.
And so, is it easier to listen if you do things like meditation or
Become
God forbid,
quiet.
psychedelics?
You become still. So when I'm entraining you by my presence into stillness, your thoughts are becoming less entropic. Your mind is quieting down, your brain is quieting down, which creates the ability of the endorphins, endorphin, serotonin, noradrenaline, all of them, all the endorphins, to be felt, and that allows the light of consciousness, which is inside the body, resonated by DNA. Remember that DNA is operating at around 40 gigahertz to 70 gigahertz. That light is felt, and the light is what connects us to the stillness, because the stillness is a magnetic field, the dielectric field, out of which the light emanates and comes down to us. So, dark energy or 0-point energy is everywhere in the universe, and they say in 1 cubic centimeter of 0-point energy you have all the matter in the entire universe. It's pretty interesting.
So, in order to get in touch with this stillness, is meditation the primary path, or can psychedelics also be used in order to get there? Not, in my opinion, you should use both, but I'm curious.
In my opinion, and all the scientists' opinion and various others, it's a door to perception. Now,
Psychedelics.
yeah. Anything that has a dopamine component like a reward aspect, works in the reward part of the brain, is addictive. You can be addicted to pain. You can be
True.
addicted to suffering. You can be addicted to making money. You can be addicted to sugar. You can be addicted to eating golden shit.
I think I'm addicted to the internet right now.
Not the golden shit.
No, well, the golden shit, how else am I going to get golden shit? Gotta go to the internet, so
Okay.
they all go together.
Now, serotonin, in my opinion, is joy generated by the microbiome. But I think we have a choice of unity, which is the serotonin experience, which you can be Nelson Mandela in prison, okay? Life sucks. No, because he does his meditation, he does the stillness, whatever it was, did it, and he felt joy. So you can be having the worst day ever, become still for a minute, and feel joy because you see the leaf on the tree, and you're not stoned. You actually perceive it as a resonant connection with your heart.
It's interesting. Can I ask you to return to something you mentioned earlier, just because I kind of want to know about it? You talked about Steve Jobs dropping acid.
Yeah.
Did you do it with him, or is
No,
this
no,
just
no, no.
something that
He did
that
it.
you know he did?
So you know he went to India,
Yeah.
so he went with Chris Ann. So and Chris Ann got pregnant there with him. He refused for years to say that these was his until finally they did a DNA test. So I used to go to yoga class with Chris Ann all the time, with Larry Hadlett in Palo Alto. And I started doing Reiki in '95 and teaching in '96. And so Chris Ann would come over, I'd go to a place and we would do crystal work and energy work. She was the only one who, I closed my eyes and she closed, she'd be lying down, send energy in. We would see the exact same thing, not just once but over and over.
When you were practicing
Reiki.
Reiki.
Yeah. Well, it's all energy work. So, but I already started. I used to have crystals in my cube at work, and I was going up the dissociative side, where I was still able to function as an engineer. But people would come and lie down in my cube because it felt cool.
Yeah, you had the coolest cube in town.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, with regards to the Ajna light, how did you invent the Ajna light?
I didn't invent anything. And people think it's silly, and it sounds like a cliche, but the reality is, the Lucia light, which really was invented, they did research, Dirk and Engelbert, two Austrian doctors. This thing cost $30,000. Two Australians had one, they were in Perth. A friend of a friend of a friend said, can these people come and stay in the healing centre? They want to come to Chiang Mai, going to Dow Gardens and all the rest of it. I looked at the website and I just said, oh yeah, didn't know anything about it. They came, put the thing up in my yoga sala, and everyone was having interesting hypnagogic experiences. And you had to sit up, you couldn't lie down, and it was hypnagogic, because they were deliberately trying to bring people into a hypnagogic state to help get them off their prescription drugs. Neurologists and psychologists, that was their thing. So, okay, the software was really, horrible is not even the beginning of it. Horrible is like an understatement of the first order.
Horrible meaning the drug withdrawal?
No. The software that they were running.
Oh, for their particular light.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
What was going on there?
I couldn't even freaking believe it. It was running on Windows.
Okay.
But Windows wasn't running. It's like it had to take over the whole thing because they didn't know how to do it. And it really sucked. It sucked.
So I have a feeling it wasn't producing DMT.
Definitely not. So they went off. This Australian couple on Sunday went off to Dow Gardens, and I said, Mantak Chia, he's a money man. He's going to ask you how much it costs, and then he's not going to be interested. Exactly that happened. But in the meantime, because they were really strange people, I didn't won't say too much. I won't give their names. But anyway, the woman said, "We have to go this way." My guides had told me. And so they drove across a freaking field. Arrived about 2 hours late, but they went across the way.
What was across the field?
Across the field.
What's in the field? I gotta know.
I don't know. Must have been a mushroom.
Oh.
Jumping up and down and laughing at them. So anyway, I was gardening. I was literally gardening. And I was told what to do. I literally had the voice mic. Use these LEDs, 10 watt, these particular. I don't know about these LEDs. You make a Wi-Fi hotspot. How do I make a Wi-Fi hotspot? You do a web app. How do I do a web app? You do an ambassador thing. There's no, you just do it through.
Were you like on mushrooms at the time, or were you sober?
I'm not. I'm totally. I'm very, very occasional. I was totally. Weeds are growing. When upstairs tells me something, they do. When people tell me something,
Yeah, what's the name? Well, if you told me to do something, I'd probably do it.
no, I'd never tell you to do something. I'd say,
If you suggest an idea in my head,
and it's
I'd probably
wacky
go for
enough,
it.
maybe.
Yeah.
But that's, and if you suggest something wacky to me, I'll probably go for it, 'cause it would do. But anyway, following orders. I do not follow the orders.
You can't do it. You can't do it.
No.
Not even from Steve Jobs.
No, seriously. Oh, I'm a storyteller, as you can imagine. I got so many stories. So I'm trying to sort of constrain myself.
So, what exactly is the engineering side? What is the science side behind the Ajna light? How is it possible that blinking lights can stimulate DMT production in someone's brain?
Okay. I had never designed a circuit board before because I was a chip designer. I hadn't done any software for 10 years, but I used to do really major Perl programs. I could, from a document, a latex document, with the pin out, I could generate all the structure for the pads of an ASIC. I had everything automated. I had a make thing where I'd press the make button, all the tests, all the back-end tests, all the simulations would run. So I really learnt at Inmos automation of software processes is really, really important. So that was my specialty, tools and automation. And so I knew how to do software from that point of view. I knew Unix very well. I'd never done anything on Linux. So in 3 months I got my board done, doing what I was told. I got the Wi-Fi hotspot out, and I looked over this board, and I was going out. And I closed my eyes, I was going out. It's like, oh, this thing works. I had no idea why. No idea at all. But about a year later, I do zero research. I'm not a researcher.
This almost sounds like a prophetic vision.
It was. I was told what to do. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but.
Well, it doesn't make sense until you use the light, because there are results with the light. I mean, if you were just some guy on my podcast saying, oh, some voice came to me and told me to do this, and then it didn't work, I'd say, well, okay, Guy Harriman.
This is my higher self.
But it's fantastic.
Somebody told me about a year later, Google melanopsin. What the hell's melanopsin?
Yeah, what is melanopsin? That was in the field? Was it melanopsin?
Yeah. Mice. Mice have lots of melanopsin.
What does that mean?
Okay, so the late 90s, the first paper was published on melanopsin. So when I was at medical school, rods and cones, that's your visual system.
Mm-hmm.
Rods are called peripheral vision.
Are there any pyramids in there?
Maybe.
Cone's kind of a pyramid. We'll give it to the cones.
Yeah, we'll get to the cones. Cone heads live in the middle.
Good job, cones.
In the fovea.
You've arrived.
That's where you get colour and that sort of.
No one likes the rods, though. What do they do?
It's actually really cool. That's the peripheral stuff. It's good. Peripheral's good. So it turns out that there are ganglial cells laid out as a matrix in the back of the retina. It's the third visual system. And they go up, it's literally brain cells that are right there. they're triggered by light at very low intensities and goes up through the optic nerve into the SC, the suprachiasmatic nucleus and balance. From there, it goes to the thalamocortical region of the brain. The thalamocortical region of the brain is the part that switches you from internal to external stimulation. So when you go dissociated, when you go to sleep, when you go not paying attention in class, daydreaming, you're in internal visionary state. The DMT is giving you wacky stuff in your visual cortex.
That's what was going on when I wasn't paying attention in class. I had DMT
That's why
flying around.
daydreaming is so important. It gives you connection to the astral, it gives you connection to whole systems thinking, not freaking Cartesian bullshit.
That damn
A,
Cartesian
then
split.
B, then C, and then follow this rule and pay your taxes, and then D.
I feel like there is a distinct absence of daydreaming these days, particularly due to smartphones. No more
Not only
daydreaming.
that, not only that, Ritalin.
Ritalin
was brought in
Ritalin
to
and
stop,
Adderall, things like that.
to stop daydreaming, to stop, creativity
Mm-hmm.
is a mental illness defined by the psychiatric.
It's ridiculous. The overprescription of Adderall is getting absolutely insane. You know what's funny? I have noticed, by sheer coincidence, that people that I tend to be attracted to, they've always been diagnosed with ADD.
Of course.
The people that I enjoy spending time with, they just all have ADD. It's not a fucking disease. Man.
Yeah, it never was. But my mother is a psychiatrist. She was a Jungian analyst. She took people off their prescription drugs.
Mm.
She never prescribed. She worked a lot with suicidal young women. And she was one of the first women to graduate as a doctor from Trinity College in Dublin in the 40s. So she was actually really cool. But a total wounded healer. Like her emotions were all up and down, and it all came up on us and the family. But she knew, 60s and 70s, no, I'm not doing drugs for people. She wouldn't be allowed to practice now.
Because she isn't giving out the Adderall.
Yes, that is the definition of psychiatry.
Ridiculous.
But that's where we came
I guess
from.
she'd be more of a psychologist if I have my definitions correct. 'Cause they're the ones that not allowed to give out
Not
drugs,
allowed
rather.
to, yeah, but I mean,
She's qualified to give out drugs.
but you know what the
She should.
founder of psychiatry in 1820? Do you know what his thesis was?
What?
Mental illness begins in the gut. That's what he said.
With the gut microbiome?
Yeah. They understood that by observation.
I didn't know they had that back in the 1820s.
1820.
I didn't even know. I thought probiotics were this new fad.
No. Chemical warfare. It all started World War II. Russians went one way. They went into electronics and all the really, really cool stuff. Bioresonance, all the physics. They went to physics. Americans, they loved chemical warfare. So they went into drugs. Bayer, mustard gas.
Not
Well,
good.
Well, it's good if you want to make money and kill people.
Yeah, if you're in war, it's great.
Yeah.
No more of that, though.
Or if you're
I think we got rid
framing
of
the
that.
Syrians.
Yeah, true. It's good for non-good causes.
Yeah. So, that's where that was the turning point. The US and Paperclip and all the rest of them bringing Nazism to the US. Now the US is a Nazi. United States.
Yeah. This is the point of podcasting. You can say whatever the fuck you want. It's great. You're not on radio.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Da 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 da. Whoops.
Said podcasting's awesome. Anyway, you're saying the Nazis.
Alright. The Nazis took over the US, and well, to be fair, the communists took over Europe through socialism. It's all collectivism. And collectivism is becoming a hive. The purpose of becoming a hive is that you're controlled by electronics, like the social credit system in China now, where they have
I heard about that. What is going on there? The whole social...
blockchain. So
Oh, Jesus Christ.
that's what we're using blockchain for. 6 million people in China were not allowed on trains or planes, not allowed to buy the tickets because their social credit was too low.
This is literally that episode of Black Mirror. Have you seen that
Well,
episode?
I've heard about it.
Mm-hmm. It's the same exact thing. It's actually happening. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's really that. Now, that's where I say the system is destroying itself because it's not connected to nature. It's connected to the iPad. It's connected to machines. Human beings want to become machines. Machines are dead.
That is
Life
true.
doesn't enjoy dead shit.
Have you heard about Neuralink?
Mm.
It's Elon Musk's new company. So
I can
he
imagine.
he bought he bought this company. The company was actually originally really cool. Basically, the idea was it would take
Oh, the one that's the implant.
exactly disabled
Yes.
people
Yeah.
who were paralyzed from the neck down. It would basically be an implant
Well,
that would
that's-
allow them to do
That's-
things.
Yeah, Peter Diamandis was talking
Mhm.
about that. Yeah, that's their way in through the back door. We're
Exactly.
good. We're good people. We're helping paraplegics.
Yeah, and so
Mm.
Elon Musk bought it, and so he said, "Well, fuck that. We'll help the paraplegics, but we're going to help everyone. And if all
Whether
goes
he
well,
wants to or
according to
not.
him, 10 to 15 years from now,
Everyone
you're
will
going
be
to get
collecting.
an injection into your brainstem. An electromagnetic mesh is going to cover your brain, and you're going to be able to do everything you can on your smartphone today, telekinetically.
No, but it's going to work the other way around.
The smartphone's going to work you. Can you imagine? We're going to have pop-ups in our dreams.
Well, that's why we're living in Thailand.
This is the spot.
Thailand's so incompetent from a government point of view. Do you know, when I bought my land, the lawyer said, "Oh, you're going to be paying capital gains tax and real estate tax." They started 30 years ago, and within 5 years, do you know what happens? It's
What?
really hilarious. So they started mapping out, it's only going to be 0.1% of tax, all the land, this is how much yours is going to be assessable. And the rich people said, no.
They just didn't do it.
Well, yeah, because it's a feudal society. So rich people said, no.
Nah, let's not do that.
So 30 years later, they've still mapped out nothing.
Hell yeah.
It's hilarious.
You got the hookup.
Yeah.
Thanks, Thailand. Appreciate it.
Incompetence in government is exactly what you want.
That's why Thailand is so great.
Yeah, that's what Doug Casey talks about.
You can take all the psychedelics you want out here. There's no man trying to keep you down.
They don't. If you're in their face,
Mm-hmm. Then they'll try to
pissing
keep
them
you
off,
down.
then they don't care.
They're kind of going through this revolution where they're trying to change their image.
Yeah,
That's why you're not allowed to look at porn, and that's why
Mm.
allegedly there's this really bad penalty surrounding drugs. It's
But if
kind
you
of all
stay
BS
quiet,
though.
it's bullshit.
Yeah, no one cares. This is the
It's-
most chill place I've ever been
Yeah,
in my life.
yeah. If they get the brown envelope, they're totally cool.
You know, it's funny. We were talking about daydreaming, the importance of daydreaming, but also the importance of dreaming. You want to know something interesting that happened to me? So I went off and I got myself pretty addicted to weed when I was a kid. I was just smoking weed all the time, probably smoking it 5 times a day for years. About 5 years, I smoked weed 5 times a day. And I didn't realize this because it kind of happened so slowly. But for that 5-year period, for the most part, I didn't really dream. I honestly didn't. I remember when I finally made the resolution to quit weed. I was expecting all these, side effects. Maybe I wouldn't be able to sleep. Maybe my appetite would be fucked up. What really got me was for the first time in years, I was dreaming. And it's extra interesting. It almost felt like my brain had this backlog of
Yes.
dreams that it was trying to get out because
Yeah.
it's cool now. Years later, I haven't smoked weed. It's normal. It's normal dreams. But for the first couple months, holy shit, it was
Yeah.
really intense going to sleep because I would have 10 or 15 of the most pure visualizing. I could remember every single thing. It was the most intense dream I've ever had in my life. It was crazy. So was my brain just getting flooded with DMT?
What I think was going on then, you were dreaming, because physiologically you'd be dreaming, you weren't remembering. So, I'm nothing against weed. I don't like it. It made me dizzy. First time I tried it, it's like, no, not my thing at all. CBD oil, it's cool, and yeah, it's okay, but it's not my thing. I don't like any smoke in my lungs, to be honest, at all.
Probably a
But
good call.
what happened
The
to
potheads would tell you to vaporize, but
yeah,
I digress.
yeah. So what happened was your body was dreaming, but it wasn't coming into your consciousness, and so the messages from your unconscious mind is like, have a look at this, or you should resolve this issue in this way, or when your mother yelled at you, this was, you know, all the little emotional and cleansing that when the glial system cleanses the brain, you know, when every night you go into Delta and you flush out through the CSF all the crap from the day, that was all still happening. Then you were going into REM period. Physiologically, if they'd monitor you, oh yeah, he's dreaming, but you're having no recall. Because really, long-term weed people, massive problems with memory. Because I saw someone in California.
Yeah, it's true.
So welcome back to the mnemotechnic world. So I think, you know, I'd like to talk to you about consciousness in a few different ways.
Yeah.
And you tried the Firelight.
Mm-hmm. So what is the Firelight for the uninitiated?
So the Firelight is the body version of the Ajna light.
Okay.
And it's super pulsed. It's a consciousness tool. John Chavez, who I told you about, he's the best researcher on dreaming and DMT. He's got a website called the letter Q, Q4LT, questionsfortheliontamer.com. Loads of papers about this stuff. So when I first met him, he just started researching into magnetics and DMT. And his hypothesis is that the Earth's field actually generates DMT in us too. So this generates a non-directional magnetic field, which is a natural magnetic field. It's actually a double torus on both sides. And more importantly, most of it is in the Z-plane. Z-plane is counter space, for those who are into that kind of stuff. It's the imaginal world. I could go on for hours about Walter Russell and what that stuff means. What this actually does, and just for fun, because we like engineering, I'm going to plug it in, and you might or might not be able to see the infrared LEDs flashing, but they are flashing. Can you see them flashing?
Oh, I can see them flashing.
Okay, this is what I use on the plane, and no jet lag. It works really well. So just place it like that on your serotonin generator.
In my stomach.
Otherwise
known. Yeah. Oh, the abdomen. Okay.
The microbiome.
This is where all my serotonin comes from.
90% of serotonin comes from the microbiome.
You know what's funny? I was talking to it was this ex-girlfriend that I used to see, and she was studying neurochemistry, and she was studying depression, things like that. And you know, a lot of people don't realize that depression is physiological. You know, your brain produces serotonin, and it's supposed to recycle it.
The gut produces.
Excuse me. The gut produces. You get serotonin.
Yep.
And your brain is supposed to do healthy things with it and recycle it. And people see other people with depression and say, "Oh, you're sad. Get over it." Well, in some cases, yeah, but in a lot of cases, there's a physiological issue going on where there's not enough serotonin. Yeah. And she was reading about that, and then she started reading about something called serotonin uptake syndrome, which is kind of the opposite of depression. Yeah. And then she started looking at the symptoms. She said, "Sam, I think you have fucking serotonin uptake syndrome. You're a weirdly happy dude."
Yeah. So that's what the inhibitors are for. We all have different biochemistry and physiology, and it's okay. But I think more importantly, you could say the Dalai Lama has too much happiness.
How dare him?
Too much joy, yeah. So our natural state, like a bird, birds are pretty chill. You know, they're going through tweeting. They don't tweet like Donald Trump. They just tweet happily.
That was a good one.
Sorry about that. My jokes are really bad.
Oh, it had to be done. It was a necessary evil.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, I don't have very many problems with birds. So what's going on with this this purple oblong shape?
Well,
on
it's
my
generating super pulsing 3 different frequencies.
Okay, what are those?
40 hertz, which is gamma, and 40 hertz was shown by MIT, flashing 40 hertz and pulsing, was shown to reduce amyloid plaque in mice. Alright, so that's really important. Schumann, 8 hertz, is the balancing in the heart. When you move outside the Earth, like the first cosmonauts, they lost all their memory because they didn't have Schumann. Now every astronaut...
Wait, go back, what? The astronauts lost their memory?
The first cosmonauts, after everything was cool for 2 weeks, and then they suddenly couldn't communicate with the dude, the Russian dude. So they sent another, you can look this up, it's true. They sent another cosmonaut up to sort of find out what the hell was
Did he
going
lose
on.
his memory as well? Or
It
was he
took them
okay?
3 years to work out what was, so they sent the first one down, same thing actually happened to the
It
second
was the
one.
very first people that ever went up into
Yeah,
space.
yeah.
Old Neil Armstrong, all that. They were.
Wait, I mean, it's
sent
talking the 50s, 60s, early 60s,
Mhm.
you know, at the beginning of the space race. The Russians were winning. And it took them 3 years to figure out what's going on. Memory is actually in the magnetic field around us, and it's at the Schumann frequency,
So what is the Schumann frequency?
8 hertz. It's the resonance of the cavity, the spherical cavity capacitance of the Earth.
This is all very difficult to digest.
I know, that's why
'Cause
you got the power.
That's why I got the Paralight.
So you didn't have, you see, your gut knows what's going on.
Uh-huh.
I'm just telling you in words.
So you're saying that our memories are held in a frequency around us and not in our brain?
There's no way. If you think, just take one little thing. One little thing is you have the ability through deja vu to have complete knowledge, not only in sight but smell and everything, of events that have happened before and potentially in the future, depending on how you look at time. When you die, when you go through a tunnel of death, you have a complete flashback in slow motion. You know, temporal lobes expand or contract time and all this stuff. So that amount of data is way more. It can only be held in the field. You know, it can't be held in little neurons wiring this together like this. Because in my father's day, that's what you were told. You know, memory is in the RNA and the neurons. That's bullshit.
Yeah, but that's just hard. That's so hard for me to mentally grasp. How can
Grasp it with your gut.
memory be held in the field, and how can we draw from that field? And what
Field, yeah.
even is a field?
Okay, give me a hand. One hand. With a microphone. Okay. This is a field.
Okay,
Do you feel some heat?
I think so. I'm curious. So for those who can't see, his hands are above and below my hands.
Yeah, I'm doing some Reiki. So I'm entraining you. This is physics. So I'm entraining you to the chi.
So what is chi exactly? How would you define
You're
it?
about to find out. So do you feel the heat?
Yes.
It's getting hotter now.
Mhm.
Okay. That's the electrical aspect of the chi. Now, if I do this pulling thing, I'm projecting chi. Tell me if you start feeling a pulling sensation.
In my hand.
Yeah, it's subtle, but you might feel a pulling sensation.
I think so.
Okay, don't think, feel. So close your eyes and just feel. As a child, you'd have felt this very strongly, but so what's going on now is you're getting a little bit
My
stronger.
mental blocks are too strong. Yeah, I can feel pulling.
Okay, I'm going to continue, and you'll probably feel it more strongly. Okay, so have a look now, and you'll see the pulling goes with the way my hands are going. That's the magnetic aspect of the chi. Chi is a unified field, it's dark field, 0-point energy, it's everything. I didn't touch you. I was inducing the electrical sensation, I was inducing the magnetic sensation. That's what the field is. The field is what we call the phenomenon of induction.
Mm. So what exactly is Reiki? I know that's a big question.
That's a big
because
question.
you're a third level Reiki master. If I
Yeah,
If I've done my research
for
correctly.
20 years, yeah. So, I suggest, because we've been going quite some time, let's do another podcast. We opened up entropy now, we touched on a lot of things, and I would like to stop now, and then come back and do another random walk.
let's do it.
Cool.
I'm excited. I was
Is there anything you'd like to say? Oh, we talked about that. How, are you feeling any warmth or anything from the Paralight?
actually fun him.
Yeah. So the third frequency is 2 hertz,
Mm-hmm.
which is the gut. So
Right.
delta, in EEG terminology, delta, Schumann is the theta, which is dreaming, and alpha, relaxation. So that's why I placed in the body. So we go delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma. And that's mapped onto the chakras. subconscious, conscious, and so stress conscious,
Okay.
and up into superconscious.
Can I ask you one or two more questions before you go? Because there's one question in particular I've been wanting to ask you that I think you'll have an interesting perspective on it. A lot of people struggle to decide whether they should follow what they're passionate about in life or follow what makes money, right? This is something that a lot of people go through, and selfishly, it's actually something I've been going through lately. And it seems like you've dealt with this personally, and I feel like you've helped a lot of other people deal with this. How do you decide which road to go down?
You don't decide. You is your ego. Your heart decides. If you're willing to listen to your heart, that's where passion is. Do it the other way around. Use the servant is the analyzer. Have the passion. Because if you're doing a job you hate, you're going to have a miserable life and die. That sucks. So, discover the passion in your life. Then use the analytical tool to find out the wacky way in which you as an individual soul, not just monetizing, it's actually trade. Money's one form of trading, trading love, trading vegetables. I used to get paid vegetables for doing body work in Silicon
good trade.
Valley. It was and I made a salad with the carrots and some.
Everyone knows that.
So find, first of all, be quiet enough, close your ego down,